and welcome to the meat shop. In this episode, I'm going to go over binders. I see that question a lot down in the comment section. What is binder? What kind of binder are you using? So we're going to make a video all about binders. So without any further ado, let's jump into it. So I guess this video is going to go kind of like this. I'll go over kind of what binders are, and then I've set up a little experiment with different types of binders that we will turn into sausages and check out the results. So binders are basically something that you add to the sausage that helps hold it together. You can think of it in a general sense. Now there's a difference between binders and fillers. Fillers is something you add, like a breadcrumb or flours and things like that. Butchers will add or have added in the past just to gain weight and hold water. You know, if you get a breadcrumb wet, it's obviously heavier, and sausages are sold by weight. But it doesn't really attach itself to the meat inside the sausage. Think of something like a really low quality sausage, like a real low quality banger, a real low quality breakfast sausage. It's really crumbly and kind of a little bit greasy. There's nothing really holding it together. Versus if you put a binder in, binder basically works with the proteins of the meat, and there's little fibers. When you cut a piece of meat, all the muscle fibers, there's little extensions that are reaching out and want to hold on to something, and they try and find other proteins. So you can get protein extraction from using just meat. You don't need to use binder, but if you add binder, it basically kind of coat those little tentacles or little protein cells that are reaching out, and they help them stick to the other ones. They also work with the water that's in the meat. So the salt, protein, and water all work together to bind, hence the binder, bind together, and then you get a better textured sausage. You don't necessarily need binders. You can get it, I said, just for meat naturally mixing. So if you want to exclude the binder in any recipe, you probably can. You just need to mix more. And the smaller the grind, the more surface area, so the easier it is to get protein extraction. If you're doing big ham cubes, you might have to leave it in the refrigerator for a couple of days for them to stick together. Or if you had a little protein powder or binder of some sort and layered it on, they would maybe happen quicker. So it's basically just a fail-safe for your sausage making. It's going to help the meat stick together. You're going to have fuller casings that have a better snap or bite when you have them. And then also, so those are kind of some quality aspects to adding a binder, help improve the quality. But if you're a commercial sausage maker, they add them for yield and profitability reasons. So if you put a binder in, you can sometimes put more, well, not sometimes, you can put more water into your sausage. I don't in my shop. I only put as much as evaporates out in the cooking process. So I put 10 in, and actually I wind up with about a 5% loss. But large commercial sausage makers can, they can put in more water and get them to hold the water. So when they're done the smoking, or they package up a fresh Italian sausage or a hot link or pepperoni, 15% of that package weight is water. So that's the reason it's used commercially. And there's a bunch of different kinds of binders. Today I have 6 picked out, but it's usually the addition of a protein. Phosphate is kind of the cutter phosphate is another name for it. It's kind of like the exception. I don't know. I think there's phosphates in protein is why it works. But we're going to use some of that today. It's in one of the products today as well. But the difference is you kind of get a different texture from the phosphate, I find. It's a spongier texture. Maybe that's because I don't use it, and the times I do have it, it's in commercially produced products that have a lot of water. So that's kind of what binders are. I guess the binders that I have picked today, I've just picked them up from a sausage supply store that's near me. You can probably find these on Amazon, but just a butcher supply shop that's not too far from you. So we have a rice-based starch binder that is gluten-free. We have a whey protein, we have a soy protein, we have lacto, which is a binder. It's non-fat dry milk powder basically. We have a deheated mustard binder, so there's protein in mustard and they take the heat out, or aka the spice seasonings flavor, so it's supposed to be flavorless. And then we also have another non-fat dry milk powder called Titolan. So we're going to do each one of those, and we're going to put it into, I borrowed this little KitchenAid here. We're going to take the meat, put the binder with the seasonings in, mix it for the exact same amount of time for each sausage to control that variable. And then we're gonna smoke them, or let them sit overnight and smoke them the next day. And we're gonna see if the texture between protein binders or phosphate binders is any better, if there's a notable flavor difference. And I just thought that'd be cool. I'm using this instead of my hands because it's gonna be, one less factor. If I wanna see which one works the best, I gotta control the variables a little bit. So I'm gonna grab the pork. All the pork is just 3 millimeter, 1/8 of an inch ground. So it's just a fine ground pork. I've all pre-weighed them all out. They're all the same. They're all gonna get mixed for the same amount of time. So let's start that. All right, so there's the pork we have. It's just kind of like an 80-20 ground pork trim. Good for making sausage. Typical, something you would use. So we're gonna stick it in the blender, mix it. We're gonna mix them all for 2 minutes and 30 seconds and see which one works the best. The recipe's gonna be the same in every one. So what I've done is I've gone 10 grams per kilogram, or 1% of the weight for the binder. Then we've gone 15 grams per kilogram, or 1.5% of the weight in salt. And then 3 grams per kilogram of pepper, 3 grams per kilogram of cure number 1, because I'm going to smoke these, and 0.5 gram per kilogram of sodium erythorbate. I'm going to pop that in. I've never used the KitchenAid to do this before, so hopefully it goes good. Pop it in there. Oh, and I need to add 10 grams per kilogram of water to each batch. How does this gizmo work? There we go. Okay, so we've got our water weight up, and now the first one we're gonna stick in is whey protein. Whey is a protein that they get off of milk when, I believe it's separated during the cheese making process. You have a bunch of whey left over after you make the cheese. So, lock that up. I've never used a KitchenAid for this before, so let's see. Oh, rips. All right, in goes our seasonings. Okay, it's already starting to ball up, so we'll add our water in. There's our 10% water. Get ready for the next one. Now, I used to use whey protein in my shop, but I found there was more people that had dairy allergies, so now I use soy protein. Soy isolate protein, Archon F. We have the timer going. One thing I thought about when I was starting this is I probably should have done a control. So that is one that had no binder, just salt, pepper, and cure. But, oh well. Okay, as you can see, we got 30 seconds to go and it's already getting quite doughy. Not sure if that's the best attachment to use, but I'm gonna use that attachment for all of them. So I'm gonna go through these one by one and do them just like this. Time's up. Take it out of there. All right, so I would say you have very sufficient protein extraction. Doesn't take very long. 2.5 minutes, it's really sticky. So I'm gonna take it out of here and we'll do the next one. Now, if I was being really, really fussy, I would give like this bowl a full clean out between each one, but I don't think that's necessary. So, there we go. Then we'll stuff them all at the end. Whey protein. Okay, so we're just gonna repeat this process every time. Meat in, spice in, water in. Okay, so but this next one here is our starch brand. I should get you the brand name. Okay, so this one's just called the all-purpose binder from the sausage supply shop I got it from, which is High Caliber down in Calgary, in case anyone asks. And it is a little bit different. It's got some rice flour, rice starch, phosphate, so that's like that cutter phosphate that isn't really a protein but does help water bind to meat. But it also has sodium erythorbate and ascorbic acid, so it has 2 cure accelerators in it. I also have cure accelerator in my recipe, so we'll see how that works. It's just fine. There's not really like a maximum amount of cure accelerator you can add. We'll definitely be under a dangerous amount anyways. So we'll stick it in here. Start my timer again. Go our spices. Oh, Bessie. All right. Tell I don't do much baking. Never really used the KitchenAid. Our rice flour one just finished. Does seem a little soupier, but it got stick. Doesn't seem quite as good as the whey, I'll tell you that. It's sticking pretty good. It just looks like it's a little waterier. I weighed it out, same amount of water. We'll see in the end though. On to the next, which is soy protein, which is what I use most of the time. All right, soy protein at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, go. Soy protein done. Seems a little less watery than the phosphate one. All right, on to the next, which is the non-fat milk dry powder next. All right, lacto, non-fat milk powder. Very fine. Timer on. Here we go. Now you guys might notice later on in the video I'm going to use another non-fat dry milk powder, and you're going to ask me, what's the difference? What's the reason why? I think it's just two different brands that this place had. One's Telotin and the other one's Lacto Binder. I think they're probably essentially the same product in the bag, or very similar. They're both gluten-free milk ingredients. Non-fat milk dry powder. Ooh, nice and thick. Looks like it works just as good as the other proteins. Up next is the deheated mustard. And it's got no smell. It smells nothing like mustard powder. It's just the protein from the mustard. This is actually what I was trained on in Olds College. We used Alberta Industrial Mustard, AIM. And it goes. Deheated mustard, check. And then last but not least, our second dry non-fat milk powder, Titolin. It's also a very fine powder. It smells a little bit like milk powder. Pop her in there. Start the timer. That means it's done. So I'm just looking at it, and it looks pretty good too. My guess is that all of these, actually this one's not quite as sticky as the last one. Not bad. Still got good protein extraction. My guess is that these are all essentially going to kind of have the same texture and quality, except for that rice flour one. I'm curious to see how that turns out when they're done smoking. Next step is to stuff all these. Okay, I'm just going to go along and stuff them one by one into the casings, and I'm going to take a weight on them before I put them back in the cooler overnight. I'm just stuffing them into, I think it's 29 millimeter collagen casings. So they're already dyed mahogany. It's kind of like a giant pepperoni. Why am I using those? Just because I got them kicking around and I don't know when the heck else I'm going to use them. So that's why. So I'm just going to do them all just like this one. I'm not going to make you watch them all. Whoop. Okay, and the giant pepperoni casings, I'm just going to go along in 8-foot lengths or so and twist them. I'm going to do that for all 6 batches. All right, they're all linked and stuffed up, so they're just going to sit in the refrigerator overnight until I got some smokehouse time tomorrow. Okay, we're nearing the end of our experiment. They were in the cooler overnight. Now I got them hung up. All right, we're nearing the end of our experiment. Got them all hung up to smoke in the smokehouse. They were in the cooler overnight, so they're gonna get an hour at 150 to dry. Then we're gonna start hitting them with smoke at 155 for about an hour and a half, and then bring the temperature up to 185 inside the smokehouse until the internal temperature of those sausages hit 160 or 72 degrees Celsius. Okay, dinger just went off. Here's a shot everybody likes. Smoky sausages. Look at that nice mahogany color. Time to put them in a nice bath. I realize I'm going to need to keep these separate so I can measure the yield. So I'm going to skip the ice bath and just give them a cold water rinse. Okay, we're on to the next day here. And we've got them all packed up with the little tags in them. So I'm just going to grab the weights off them one by one and see how they all yielded. So I'll do that right now. Okay, so I just pulled them all off the scale, and it doesn't seem to make too big of a difference on which one you use when it comes to yield. Whey protein, there was a 16% weight loss, soy 15, telotilin 16.5, rice 16.5, mustard 14.5. and lacto 16. So I guess the mustard was the winner, but there's all sorts of stuff that happened in between there, the cooking and mixing and finish step here that could have affected them by 1% or whatever. So now what we'll do is I'll just try them all and see if you can notice any flavor difference. And then at this point, I'm kind of kicking myself that I didn't do a binder-less one to see the results. You know, see if it's crumbly, or maybe just do like a really bad one, an unmixed one, so you guys can see the difference here. But I guess we will start with the Teltolan. That's the non-fat milk powder one. These all look really yummy, though, by the way. And I'm just gonna bite into one, I guess. Well, it's got really good protein extraction. It's very dense. I want to say you can taste the milk powder a little bit in a really mild sausage like this. It doesn't taste bad or anything, but you can sort of taste the milk powder a little bit in the Teltolan. Drink of water. Clean the old palate off. Okay, next one's the whey protein. Nick a little nug off there. Also has nice protein extraction, really firm inside the casing there. Now that I taste the whey protein one, you can definitely tell in the Teltolan or the non-fat milk powder that you can taste the milk. This one is a lot more mild, even though it's just salt and pepper, than the non-fat milk powder, for sure. It's got a little bit of a taste from the whey, like very, very, very subtle. Can't hardly notice it. Cleanse the palate. Okay, on to our soy. Yeah, similar results to the other two when it comes to firmness. Fills the casing right up. Has a bit of snap when you bite it. That one's quite similar to the whey. There's hardly anything there. A mild salt and pepper sausage with some hickory smoke on it. So I'm a little bit biased towards the soy because that's what I use in the store all the time. So that tastes like more like my normal sausages. So on to the deheated mustard. Looks good. I'll bring it in so you guys know what I'm talking about. So I keep saying it looks good and it's full, but you see I squeeze this and it doesn't crumble out of the sausage casing anyway. Fills this whole sausage casing right up. Sausage casing is nice and plump. So that's what I'm looking at when I say you got nice protein extraction, it's good and full. But anyways, let's try the deheated mustard. There's a subtle taste difference between the soy and the whey and the deheated mustard. I think in any other sausage, for the most part, these last four I've tasted, and any other sausage you're not going to pick it up. It does the job of protein extraction, but you know, I'm just being really picky in this video, and that one, it does affect the taste a little bit, sort of like the non-fat milk powder. You can pick up. It's not like mustard. I don't know. It's like a kind of earthy, herby type thing a little bit. Just a little bit though. You'd still be fine using it. Now we're on to another non-fat milk powder, the lacto binder. And we'll see if we can pick it up again. The first one, it was pretty notable, so good protein extraction again. Now with these milk ones, they kind of taste like how they smell a little bit. You can pick them up just a little bit. They smell like that non-fat milk powder. You know, we used enough in there to make it notable. You can pick it up on both of those a little bit. I think the difference between the brands are lactose like slightly milder than this Teltolan. But you know you got non-fat milk powder in there. If you're doing it like this, you can taste it. Okay. Now our rice starch blend. Feels like it's got the same amount of protein extraction. All right, cleanse the old palate. This is the only one that had phosphates in it. I don't really use phosphates in my shop. A little bit biased against them, but it appears to have done a good enough job with the protein extraction. Again, I regret not having a control that has no protein added to it, but that one's great. It's nice and mild. You can't taste any. I'm looking for the subtle taste of something and there's nothing there. So yeah, no, that one's fine, I think. So but basically this goes to show you guys that you can use any binder in your sausage products. That's probably available at any sausage supply shop or even food stores, okay, in your sausages, and you're gonna get a really nice result. Like I said again, I regret not having a control so you guys can see a crumbly sausage. But if you ever have had that problem where you mix and then your sausages are shriveled at the end, it's probably because you didn't get enough protein extraction or you had too much fat in your sausage. So you can get away with having a little extra fat in your sausage when you're using a binder. Any of these would work, I think, fine. It's really not going to affect your end product too much between each one. I'd say you're safe to use them across the board. So I hope this has helped, guys. If you have had binding issues in the problem, I hope this troubleshoots them for you. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you find it informative. And thanks for watching our little episode on sausage binders.